Still feeling like we have a chance, unlike the St. Louis Cardinals. You're listening to 87 Live. Yes, indeed, it is the Boston Red Sox that are leaving no doubt as we speak.
No doubt.
Currently up 6-0. 6-0 in an elimination game. I am one of your illustrious hosts, Keith Grieve.
And I am Steve Taylor. Hi, man.
Hey, how we doing?
Good. Getting all geared up on sports.
Yes.
Sports time.
Yes.
The whole day has been a non-sports day, so I'm ready to focus on sports.
And now we're getting into another busy time of year where all of the sports have something going on, at least for one more night anyway. And things to talk about. We've got an action-packed show here for you, folks. We're going to start off with the World Series and baseball talk, and then get into the NBA opening night last night, and some interesting developments tonight, including a upset I never would have seen coming. And then at 11 o'clock, Jim Saranteas, the Fantasy Greek, will join us for the best hour of sports talk radio that nobody listens to. The NFL hour here on 87 Live. I think if you are a football fan, you need to make a point to at least hang around for that.
Oh, absolutely.
It's at least good talk. The phone number, if you want to join the discussion at any time tonight, folks, is 585-633-7487. Once again, 585-633-7487. You can email us at youguysuck@87sportsfans.com or our Twitter handle at 87sportsfans. By all means, you don't want to listen to us talk for 2 hours.
No.
Thank God Jim's there to break up that last hour. But anyway.
Exactly.
So without further ado, whatever that is, let's get into this Game 6. Boston leading it as we speak, 6-0. 7 hits, 6 runs for the Red Sox. Jacoby Ellsbury 2 for 4. Shane Victorino 2 for 2, but a big night with 4 runs batted in. Even Stephen Drew, who had been 1 for his last 3,000, managed to make an impact. And the Cardinals, who had pinned their hopes on the rookie Michael Wacha. No Fozzie Bear jokes, please. I know, it's hard, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
It really is hard. Who has been really sensational in the postseason to date. But, the kid he's 22 years old, all right? This guy, to put it in perspective, Mr. Taylor, was born slightly after we completed 9th grade.
Jeez.
Okay. So, yeah, right. How does that make you feel? Does that make you feel good? Because it doesn't make me feel good.
Like I have not accomplished anything. That's how it makes me feel.
Sadly, I'm right there with you.
Oh, Christ.
But up until today, he had been 4-0 in the postseason, 27 innings pitched, only 3 earned runs, struck out 28, facing 98 batters, a whip of under 1, .704 in his 4 postseason starts. You can't really ask an ERA of 1 even for the entire postseason. He had a start against Pittsburgh, he had a start against the Dodgers, and tonight was his second start in this World Series.
Yeah. But, you can't ask a kid to, I guess you can because he's a professional, but, to have expectations that somebody as young as him with as little experience that he has to go into a deciding World Series game at Fenway Park. There's very few pitchers in this league that could go to that location in a deciding game and not, fall victim to their own nerves.
I'd have to go back and look. I'm a very cerebral sports watcher. Like if you get any details out of me, it's because I've gone back and watched replays and over again. But it seemed like every fastball that Wacha left belt high or higher was just driven. Just absolutely driven. Like they were sitting dead red and just driving the ball all over the place. So he finishes his night with 3 2/3 innings pitched, giving up 5 hits, all 5, and 5 of the 7 hits now, and 6 earned runs, walking 4, and giving up the dong to Stephen Drew. And not for nothing. That would make me feel worse than losing the game, that I gave up a home run to Stephen Drew, who was batting 111 in this series.
Yeah, but those are always the guys at this point in a series that do get the home runs because they have been batting so crappy. I mean, look at Ortiz. David Ortiz is having one of the greatest postseasons in baseball history as a batter, and he got walked 3 times because they're not stupid enough to pitch to him, but they're going to pitch to someone like Drew. So you're going to give him the opportunity, and of course he's going to make the most of it because they're so scared of Victorino and Ortiz, that they are going to pitch and lay some ducks across the plate to some of these guys that are not hitting well, and give Red Sox a lot of credit. They're getting their hits when they need them, and this game's done. I think right now it would be impossible for St. Louis to come back.
He batted .211 in the ALDS against Detroit. Oh, I'm sorry, Tampa Bay. I'm looking at the wrong year. 133 against Tampa Bay. .050 against Detroit, and .067 going into tonight's game against the St. Louis Cardinals. He has, let me just do some quick math here, 45 at-bats and 4 hits. Whew. That is what we call struggling, to say the least.
Well, it all matters when the hit matters tonight. It's not what you did in the past. It's what you did, what you're doing for me now, and Look at what he did. He was able to get them going on this run.
You are absolutely right, sir.
Now, the big question, and this is one that I have been just racking my brain over. Who gets the MVP? You have Big Papi, who's hitting .733. But then you have John Lester, who pitched 2 masterful games. I mean, he's 15 and a third innings pitched, 15 strikeouts, 9 hits, a walk, and 1 earned run. I mean, you can't do much better than that.
No, he was money the other night.
Oh my God! They couldn't do anything. They couldn't do anything. But I mean, Papi though, what a postseason! I mean, what a World Series! It's staggering. I mean, when I knew he was doing well, and it was the other day. After the game on Monday, I'm like, man, he's been hitting well. I wonder what he's hitting. And then I saw he's hitting .733. And going into this game, he was hit 15. No, he reached base 15 out of the 20 times he went to the plate.
Okay,
that's crazy.
You talk about John Lester, and I'm looking at his stats. This is his second World Series. Uh-huh. He's 3-0 for both those World Series with a .43 ERA.
That's ridiculous.
In 3 games. 12 hits in 21 innings pitched, 4 walks, 18 strikeouts, facing 77 batters, a whip of .762.
And that's why I'm saying it's such, because they should have a joint MVP.
No,
it really should. I know they won't because Ortiz is Big Papi is the face of the franchise and all that. But if there was ever a situation, and honestly, if there were ever 2 guys that I know would not mind sharing it like these 2 would, because it doesn't seem like their egos are big enough that it would get in the way, I think it would be great for baseball to say, listen, both these guys were, extremely important for their teams. Because you look at Ortiz, yeah, he had a lot of hits, and like most of them didn't really come in times when they were necessary. He got on base and then ended up not scoring. But then, a good portion of them actually mattered. So you got to wonder, I'm like, why not give it to both of them?
His OPS for the World Series going into this game was 2.017. That's just ridiculous. And it seems like every time that they needed a clutch hit, he got it.
Yeah. He has a 1.26 slugging percentage.
Yeah, it's
the next closest guy is Gomes, or no, it's actually Bogarts with a 350, and Ortiz is 1.2.
How about this? How about this? In 3 World Series, David Ortiz is batting .465 with an 814 slugging percentage in the World Series and a 1.37 OPS.
That's unbelievable. He might, and they were saying this morning on the mothership that David Ortiz could potentially take over Reggie Jackson, because even when Reggie Jackson was at his best, he during a World Series he only hit, I think they said it was like in the 460s, like 467 or 470. Where hitting 733 in a World Series is just insane. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's insane.
Well, you think about it, is that you're facing the best team from the other league. So usually their pitchers are not, run of the mill, for lack of a better term. So to hit above 400 for a World Series, even for an ALCS or a championship series, to hit above 400 is just phenomenal. I know there's less at bat, so it's easier to run up a batting average.
Yeah.
But when you do it over 3 World Series to those kind of numbers, you can't sniff at those numbers. You know what I mean?
And and the thing I appreciate is all those people that accuse him of being a steroider without being ever caught.
Mostly just.
He only has 2 home runs out of all those hits, and that bat. He only has 2 home runs, which 2 home runs is still good out of 6 games, but it's not like his whole game, kind of like McGuire, was home runs. He's actually getting hits. He's doing what many still believe is the most difficult thing to do in any sport, which is to hit a baseball. So it's like, from a Yankees fan, I have the utmost respect for Ortiz. I think it's going back to the whole commercial with Posada where he puts on the Yankee hat. Mm-hmm. I thought that was one of the greatest commercials ever. But
and then what's his name? The
mascot.
Yeah, the mascot walks by. Yeah,
that was one of the best commercials. And for him to do that, he probably lost some fans because of that. Just because even though it wasn't in a joke, I can understand some of the Red Sox fans who are I don't want to say idiots, but some of them you got to wonder about. They might not have taken it the right way, but I appreciated it, and I think he is one of the he's in my opinion up there with Rivera as a first ballot Hall of Famer. Like if someone like him does not get in on first ballot, same as what I said with Rivera, then there is something wrong with those smug pricks that put people in the Hall of Fame. That's all I got to say.
The thing with David Ortiz is the fact that everyone points. It's the one aspect of his resume that everyone points to is that they go back to his days in Minnesota, where he was suspect or very, very average, underwhelming, and then all of a sudden in 2003. His last year in Minnesota in 2002, he batted .272. Then he goes to Boston and is the MVP, or at least got 5. I'm trying to think. He was 5th. I'm sorry, in MVP voting that year. A-Rod actually won the MVP for the Texas Rangers, and then 301, 300, 287, and the home runs jump up from 20 to 31, 41, 47, 54 in 2006, and then mysteriously they dip to 35, 23, 28, 30. You know what I mean? We are now trained as baseball fans to be suspicious of those peaks and valleys.
Yeah. So but, you also...
I don't think he's a first
in 2007, he turned 30, and his batting average went up. Yeah, his home runs went down, but his batting average went up. His on-base percentage went up. You know what I mean? So could be a lot of factors in there. It could be age, could be that. It could be the fact that he was just trying to improve his batting.
Well, and you know what I mean? Until he fails a test, you can't make a legit argument. But
exactly.
I think because of those statistical anomalies, he'll have to wait a year or two before he gets in, because they are smug bastards that are voting on the Hall of Fame.
Yeah. I think the one thing he has going for him, at least in the steroid discussion, in my opinion, is he is, some of these other guys like Barry Bonds and A-Rod, they were not naturally big guys, and they got really big. Where Ortiz is kind of like Pujols, where they're just huge dudes. You know what I mean? They were before, and there's something that is, something to be said with just being bigger and being able to hit home runs. And early in his career, you could easily chalk up the fact that he was just learning how to hit major league pitching. And then with every year went by, he just improved, and he was able to. As soon as he was able to connect, of course, the balls are going to go out of the yard.
And we apparently have jinxed David Ortiz because he just went down swinging.
Oh, he did.
Well, okay,
we'll quit talking.
Right now, speaking of striking out, I gotta say, I make no secret of who my allegiance is with. I am a dyed-in-the-wool Mets fan, with all of the frustrations and the lack of success that comes with following a franchise, a beleaguered franchise like the Mets. I really have no desire to see Carlos Beltran win a World Series. And I was thinking about this, and I'll come right out. It's because he took that pitch to end the NLCS in 2006. If he had swung and missed, wouldn't have had a problem.
Yeah.
Popped out to catcher, not a problem. Tapped it back, a number back to the pitcher to end this, not a problem. Because he sat there, or stood there rather, with the bat on his shoulder and let that pitch go by, that annoys me to no end, to the point where I have no use for him as a baseball player. He could be the nicest guy in the world, and from all accounts that I've read, he really kind of is a good guy. He could be the kind that, lays down his jacket over a puddle so an old lady can cross the street without getting her feet wet, while putting the fires out on a bus that's almost hitting that old lady and chasing down the guy that set the fire to the bus who is running around. I still don't want him to win the World Series.
Jesus.
That
took a lot to get out, didn't it?
Yeah, I had to make sure I set the stage correctly. I didn't want any what's the word I'm looking for? I didn't want any gray area.
Yeah.
When people are wondering, God, I wonder what Keith really feels.
I don't think anyone wonders now.
So make a decision. You were talking about sharing an MVP. Who's your MVP pick?
I think it has to be Ortiz.
Yeah.
I really do. I mean, I would like to see Lester, but I think it's got to be Ortiz. Just because there have been great pitchers in the past, and in the recent past of World Series, there have been great pitching performances. There hasn't been a hitting performance like this in the World Series in quite a long time. So I think it's got to be Ortiz.
I agree with you. The pitchers always have an uphill battle because they don't play every day. And whether that's fair or not, it just is. I mean, Lester won 2 games. Ortiz is there for all 6 games, doing it day in and day out. Now, if somehow St. Louis comes back and forces a Game 7 and they trot Lester out and he goes and pitches a complete game or 7 innings of 3-hit ball, you know what I mean? Then I think maybe you make a case for Lester. But I think the MVP has to be David Ortiz. So if you're the St. Louis Cardinals, God, right now you're getting into the bottom of the 6th. Carlos Martinez is now just relieved Kevin Segrist. I gotta look up the Cardinals roster and see what they might be looking at in the offseason here. They won 97 games in the regular season. And payroll and salaries. Who is a free agent after 2013? Well, Beltran is. Chris Carpenter. Rafael Furcal, who's been injured all year. John Axford is up for arbitration. Blah, 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 blah. So really, they just have big decisions to make with Carlos Beltran. And Chris Carpenter, who is going to be 39 next year. So basically, if you're a Cardinals fan, you're getting your whole team back, minus probably your right fielder, if Beltran decides to test the waters. You got to be feeling pretty good.
Yeah, I mean,
the season was not easy, though. You know what I mean? They won the Central, but the Pirates were right there with them.
Yeah, and there's nothing. I mean, I know that a lot can happen in the postseason, but there's nothing that makes you think that the Pirates, the Dodgers, unless they don't get Mattingly back, some of those major teams in the National League are going to be that were up there are going to be right back with the same people as well. So it's going to be a dogfight.
The Pirates have some big decisions to make. A.J. Burnett is a free agent. Justin Morneau is a free agent. John Buck is the backup catcher. He's up for free agent. Clint Barmas is up for free agency. Jeff Karstens is up for free agency. Kyle Farnsworth. Marlon Byrd, who was acquired midseason with a trade with the Mets. So they have... if the Pirates want to keep pace, they need to make some decisions and make some decisive decisions as well. So we look forward to covering the postseason. Or the off-season, rather, with little hot stove reports. But for right now, let's take a quick break. And when we come back, we'll talk about NBA opening night. And the Miami Heat are not undefeated on night number 2. It just blows my mind. You're listening to 87 Live on 87 Sports Fans Radio. We'll be right back, folks.
No one knows who are you. No one seems to hear your cries, and you stop this race against the world. But you know the only way is to tell the truth. Don't care about people who disagree. I know all you want is to disappear, but now is the time to play the game, to show that you are not afraid, but now that everyone sleeps, could feel what you felt in your last life. You felt in your last
Crowd of emotions stumbling all around my heart. It must mean that you're near me, 'cause I can breathe you like you start. I'd give you everything, I'd take you anywhere you'd ever want to go. Just tell me what it takes to make you mine. Time I've been waiting my life to feel, baby, you love this view. But while my past keeps on fading, say that you're here to stay, baby, don't have to take this love from me. I feel this flood all around me, I'm drifting through a whole new life, where all I want is to have you, and you're my reason why. I'd give you everything, I'd take you anywhere you'd ever want to go. Just tell me what it takes to make you mine. I've been waiting my life to feel, baby, you love this view. Though all my past keeps on fading, say that you're here to stay, baby, don't ever take this love from me. All this time I've been waiting my life to feel, baby, you love this view. Though all my past keeps on fading, say that you're here to stay, baby, don't ever take this love from me. I feel this crowd of emotions stumbling all around my heart. It must mean that you're near me, 'cause I can breathe you like you start. 'Cause all this time I've been waiting my life to feel, baby, you love this view. But while my past keeps on fading, say that you're here to stay, baby, don't have to take this love from me. All this time I've been waiting my life to feel, baby, you love this view. But while my past keeps on fading, say that you're here to stay, baby, don't ever take this love from me. Baby, don't ever take love from me.
Welcome back. You're listening to 87 Live on 87 Sports Fans Radio. Keeping an eye on the World Series right now. It's still 6-0 Red Sox.
It's over.
Yeah, right. In the middle of the top of the seventh. Matt Carpenter doubled the left. So it looks like, and the Cardinals just scored. 6-1 now.
Oh, that sucks.
So it's not over yet, kids, but
it's over.
It's over. All right, so let's get on. But first, I'm going to kick the floor over to Mr. Taylor.
All right, folks, I talked to you about this last week. I want to talk to you about something I'm very proud of. I recently published my first book. It is a fiction novel called A Lockbox. It revolves around Sam and Emily Lana, two average teenagers just spending their summer vacation dealing with, normal everyday issues. And then all of a sudden their lives are just turned upside down and they're thrown into the middle of a spy, I don't want to say spy game, but just a world of espionage. And it's something I'm very proud of. For those of you that haven't had a chance to read it yet, so far the thing I've heard from people is that the reason they enjoy it is a very quick read. It's not an overly long book, but it's one that will grab your attention. It's one that'll keep you turning the pages and always asking what's going to happen next. So something I'm proud of. Right now you can get it on Amazon.com. It is available for the Kindle. And the paperback, which I have to apologize, I received my first copy today, and the book looks beautiful, but when they printed it, there were no page numbers. So I've fixed this issue, but unfortunately, the book will not be available in paperback for another, I want to say like 4 to 5 days, while they're kind of correcting it in their system and then going back to reprint. So as of right now, it's still available in ebook. It will be available in paperback hopefully this time next week. And if you have any questions, if you want to know more about the book, go to staylorbooks.com, which is my website. And there is a link to 87 Sports Fans because I just can't get away from this show.
Why would you want to?
I know. I'm proud of it. Damn it.
And I'll also kick back reminder that this and every broadcast is brought to you by CG Imaging. That's CG-imaging.com. CG Imaging. Virtually creating reality. The number again to call in, 585-633-7487, 585-633-7487. The email, you guys suck at 87sportsfans.com, and hit us up on Twitter at 87sportsfans. So, we had a little league get underway last night. The NBA kicked off with, a couple of pretty good games. 3 games all.
What's the shocking one though?
Let's just be, because everyone will accuse me of being biased. So let's just get through them in chronological order. We had the Pacers and the Magic. The Pacers win by 10, 97-87, which about where we thought what the Pacers should do, right? I mean, they're going to be a 1 or 2 seed, a 2 or a 3 seed in the Eastern Conference
easily.
Final. Okay. Then we had the Heat beat the Bulls, which the score ends up being 107-95, but this game was over in like the second or third quarter, and Chicago managed to chip away and come back.
And the thing I appreciated the most about this loss, and there's no love lost for Chicago with me, especially with Derrick Rose. All of the talk going into the season, off of preseason games, which is, Rose looks great and he's fast and he's got everything back, until he goes against a good team in the regular season. And, he looked like he lost a step. That's what, when I watched the highlights of that game, that's what I thought. I'm like, it looks like he lost a step, which is not surprising coming off that injury. But once again, it raises the question, is Derrick Rose going to be the Derrick Rose of old? Because if he isn't, then I think Chicago's in a lot of trouble because their supporting cast is not good enough, proven last year, to take them to a championship game without an MVP Derrick Rose. So I'm very interested to see. I know it is, that's the one problem with the NBA. It's kind of the same as baseball. It's such a long season that these early games, who knows? You can't really. You got to take them with a grain of salt. But it was interesting to me to see that.
Oh no, it's I don't know. With Derrick Rose coming back, and we hammered him last year,
deservingly.
Yes. But it's going to take a second. Again, we're going to talk about the Lakers beating the Clippers last night as a shocker too. That doesn't mean all of a sudden the Lakers are going to win 50 games. Doesn't mean the Bulls are going to lose 50 games. And they ended up scoring 37 points in the fourth quarter against Miami, which, is no slouch defensively. And LeBron looks 10 times better than he already was.
Yeah.
It's just nuts. But hitting up on the late game, which, yes, I am a Laker fan, so I'm a little biased, but it shocked the crap out of me. It's the game I really want to talk about. I've been dying all night to talk about this game, and not just because I somehow managed to stay up late enough to watch it. But the Lakers were not fine-tuned by any stretch of the imagination, and they only shot 45% from the field. But there seemed to be, especially with the second unit, with the Jordan Hill, Jordan Farmar, Jody Meeks, Xavier Henry, when those
Xavier
guys,
Henry, where did he come from?
yeah, when those guys were on the floor, there seemed to be a different kind of energy. And credit Pau Gasol for getting off to the start that he did, because that game could have run away really quickly. But he was on early, ended up only 5 of 12 from the floor, scored 15 points with 13 rebounds. But he also had 5 turnovers.
Yeah.
He's going to be the guy. Chris Kaman was very up and down. Wesley Johnson, 1 of 11 from the floor.
That's just a chucker.
And I'm a Syracuse fan, too, so it's like, please, Wes, make this easy on me.
Yeah, seriously.
But on the other side of the floor, Blake Griffin has a Blake Griffin night, 8 of 15 for 19 points and 7 boards. However, he's only 3 of 10 from the free throw line. Yes, that may be his MO, but it still doesn't make it acceptable. DeAndre Jordan, 17 points, 11 boards, and I swear that all he does is dunk. I swear to God, that's all he does. I think I saw him make one post move all night that was legit.
What's that?
DeAndre Jordan. That's all he does. That's all he does is just garbage dunks and alley-oops.
Which, I mean, that's the Clippers.
It is what it is.
Are alley-oopers.
I hate that name, Lob City. I wrote it in my Western Conference preview, by the way.
That's the truth.
By the way,
somebody at work was talking about Blake Griffin, and they're like, why doesn't anyone consider him, one of the best players? It's because he's not a good basketball player. He's a great athlete. He's an unbelievable athlete. But he's just an average, if not below average, technical basketball player.
Yeah, if it wasn't without the alley oops, if Chris Paul's not on that team, we're not even considering this team.
Oh, I agree 100%. But it's just, you look at them, and it's surprising to me from a Doc Rivers team, just from somebody that's appreciated his coaching ability, over the last decade, to have a team not finish. Because if you look at it, the Clippers were up by 4 going into that fourth quarter. And then defensively, they just went on hiatus because they gave up 41 points to the Lakers in that final quarter, which makes you wonder, what the hell happened? I mean, they held the Lakers to 20 points in the third quarter. It was 28, 27, 20. So their defense was getting better as the game went along. And then it's like they just stopped. And we're like, go Lakers, do whatever you want to do.
And they hit, some threes. They hit 5 threes in the fourth quarter. But I'm sorry, 6 threes. Actually, I'm trying to see. The ESPN.com shot chart doesn't want to cooperate.
Yeah.
But anyway.
But it's mind-boggling to me. Doc is such a defensive-minded coach. And for him to allow his team to just melt down like that is, I don't get it. I don't know if it's the players not listening to him or.
Well, it's the first game of the season. They could be. The Lakers were running up and down the court. There were only 2 DNPs, and that's Ryan Kelly and Robert Sacra.
Yeah.
For obvious reasons.
Yeah, but once again, they were running up and down the court, but you read off the names of who was running up and down the court, and for the most part, when you have Jordan Farmar torching you on plays, not saying that they're not good players, they are professionals, but these guys are not the dream team going down the court,
right.
But they made them look like they are.
Jordan Farmar, 6 of 10 from the floor with 6 assists off the bench.
Yeah.
He did manage to somehow rack up 5 personal fouls, too. So
hey, good for him.
I applaud that. 16 points he finishes with. But you look at the interesting thing about me, now this is the first full season with D'Antoni at the helm, because obviously there was that whole mess of Mike Brown being fired 5 games in last year, and blah, 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 blah. So this is D'Antoni's team from the get-go, and you look at the minutes distributions and just going top to bottom in the box score
very
here.
even.
24, 13, 21, 22, 22, 20, 18, 27, 26, 26, 21. Obviously, that will all probably change when Kobe Bryant gets back to 100%, not necessarily when he's back, because I'm sure they'll ease him in and take it easy and not want to blow out that Achilles again. But
see, that's the thing. I think the best thing for him is if he goes along with this. Because regardless of what he says, at his age, he's never going to be 100% coming off that injury. You just aren't with that kind of injury. And if he can just be happy with like 25 to 30 minutes a game, I mean, that's what Dwayne Wade's doing right now. Well, he didn't play tonight, but that's kind of what Miami's doing with Wade, and it's helping to extend his career.
Right, it's going to take a full year for him to get back to 100%. You know what I mean?
See, I don't know if he'll ever be 100, though.
Well, put it this way.
It's tough.
If he is, it's not going to be this year. Let's put it that way.
No.
So he needs to come up with an old man game. He needs to come up with a YMCA Monday, Wednesday night open basketball game where he's still unstoppable, but you just don't know how.
Yeah.
You don't know how he does it. But you look down and all of a sudden he's put up 25 and 10. You have no idea how he did it because there's nothing that nothing that you've seen that would make you think that he's an unbelievable player. But that's the kind of game, unfortunately, he's going to have to come up with.
Yeah.
That injury, to lose your ankles as a basketball player, I mean, it affects your explosion. It affects your spring.
Yeah.
As far as hang time, it affects your defensive quickness and agility. Everything. I guess it would do it with any athlete, but it seems to when you're playing basketball, you change direction a lot quicker, a lot more consistently, especially on defense. Anyway, it would just hamper coming back. So if they can get this kind of performance every other night, you're not going to get it every night. Every other night, the Lakers might not be as bad as we thought they were, but it doesn't make them a title contender by any stretch.
But it's just, I think if they can continue to have success, not go undefeated, I don't think that's going to happen, but if they continue to have this kind of success with this system, I think that would be the best thing. Because damn well if they're losing when Kobe comes back, he's going to think in his mind, I need to be the savior. I need to be the one to come in, take control. People are doubting me. I need to be able to come in and take care of business. But if they're successful, a lot of people forget because I was one of the Kobe bashers early in his career saying that he was a ball hog because he was. And so was Jordan. So was a lot of the great players. But if you look at the last championship the Lakers won, I mean, everyone pretty much was saying that the big surprise was Kobe was acting more like a team player. And that's what led to their success. So I'm hoping that when he comes back, it's going to be a similar situation. Because they can really make some noise.
Kobe's a scorer. He's got that scorer's mentality. I want the ball. I'm going to get the ball. And if you're open, I might give it to you.
But see, I think that has changed over the years, though.
Oh,
over the last few years, if you look at him, it seems like he's a little more, maybe not last season because it was such a disaster and he knew he had to carry the team. But prior to that, he looked like he was getting more into the I want to be like the late Jordan leadership role, which I think would be perfect for him right now.
I don't think he's ever gotten enough credit for his assists. So if you look at from his, over the course of his career, starting with 2001, 2002, his assist total has gone 438, 481, 330, 398, 360, 413, 441, 399, 365, 388, 264 in 2011, 2012, and then last year back up to 469. So he's capable. It honestly depends on. Last year he averaged 6 assists a game, and that's probably about where he is for his career. 4.8, but for a 2-guard, I don't know how much you want him passing. You know what I mean? But obviously he can't be like playing hero ball because he just doesn't have that kind of game anymore. And
he could. All he has to do is look at LeBron. everyone says, I don't want LeBron passing. But when he drives to the basket and four people follow him to try to stop him because they think he's going to score, then, being able to pass is actually going to benefit you a lot more. And when Kobe comes back, people, regardless of his injury or his age, people are still going to double team him. And being able to pass out of that, I think, is the biggest asset you can have.
I would be inclined to agree with you. All right, so let's go fast forward to tonight. We had a huge upset. Yes, I know it's only game 2, so what's the big deal? We're just, you know what I mean? But the Philadelphia 76ers, who especially once they made the knowledge or the announcement that Nerlens Noel was not going to play at all this year, really thought this team was just going to be a hideous mess. And they might still be. But tonight, they are the team that took down the defending champions, 114-110. The star of the game, Michael Carter-Williams, a rookie point guard out of Syracuse, in his first start with 22 points, 12 assists, and an NBA record for a debut, 9 steals.
Yeah.
Best part of that for Philadelphia, only 1 turnover. 12 assists, 9 steals, 1 turnover. Shoots 4 of 6 from beyond the arc, 6 of 10 for the floor. And of note, obviously the Heat were playing without Dwayne Wade, just kind of a precautionary thing. Roger Mason Jr. started at the 2-guard and only played 15 minutes, but Ray Allen got the bulk of the minutes there, finished with 19 points, 6 boards. LeBron James, 25 points, 13 assists.
Yeah.
And Bosch, 22 and 10 for himself. So, again,
well, you got to look at Miami. One of their Achilles heels has always been they will play down to their talent, to their opponent. And if you look at their first quarter, I mean, they only put up 14 points, while the Sixers put up 33. So it made you think, because they went from 14 points in the first quarter to 35 and 45 in the second and third. So it's like, yeah, the first quarter, it didn't seem like they were really there, or they kind of blew off what the Sixers were going to be. Then they kicked it into gear and then just ran out of gas in the fourth, and that's why they ended up losing.
They finished with 19 turnovers, which led to 27 points. But they only had 11 fast break points. So it's not exactly what we're accustomed to seeing from the Heat.
Yeah.
But give the 76ers credit. They ended up with 26 fast break points. But they do manage to turn the ball over 18 times still. So,
and if I was Miami, I would be terrified right now because the Indiana Pacers, who are 2-0, are looking very good this season so far. They are, tonight, Paul George, 32 points. Roy Hibbert didn't have a lot of points, but he had 5 blocks. And he had a little injury yesterday, tweaked his ankle a little bit, so he only played 22 minutes. But, I mean, so far this season, in the first 2 games, they looked really good.
Yeah.
So, what's that?
And against the Pelicans team, which, I seem to be the only one with any love for this team, but they're talented. You know what I mean? They only lost by 5 here to the Pacers.
Mm-hmm. No, they have players.
Just a matter of whether they can put it all together.
Yeah.
Syracuse fans, New Orleans Pelicans, backup power forward Arinze Anawaku, 15 minutes today.
Zoom tight.
Yeah, exactly. 2 points. 3 assists and 5 boards. Not bad for somebody that can't hit a free throw.
That's most of the league.
Well, he fits right in.
Yeah, it's perfect. It's beautiful.
Did he shoot any today? No, they didn't. They didn't make the mistake of giving us all fodder. So let's see what else happened tonight. Let's dance around the league. The Minnesota Timberwolves defeat the Orlando Magic in overtime, 120-115. Dallas Mavericks closing out the Atlanta Hawks with 125 left in the corner, 118-102. Spurs beat the Grizzlies 101-94. The Thunder beat the Jazz, or are leading the Jazz rather, at the end of 3, 81-73. Now, in the second quarter, granted it's early, the Phoenix Suns are up on the Portland Trailblazers 40-29. And I was doing my Western Conference preview the other day, and I looked at the Trailblazers roster, and this team can be dangerous. I'm not saying they will. I'm not ready to say they will be dangerous. But that's another team, and I think they're a step ahead of the Pelicans. I can't believe I have to say the Pelicans. It just blows my. I can't get used to that.
Pelican.
I think they're a step ahead, but honestly, they're starting five: Lillard, Matthews, Aldridge, Batum, and Lopez. I personally am not a big Robin Lopez fan at center, but you could do a lot worse, right?
Well, yeah, you could read off the roster of like the Bucks. That'd pretty much be worse. But
Milwaukee's dead. Just they should change their name from Bucks to Roadkill.
Yeah, same thing.
Yeah.
I don't know. To me, I hate to say it, but unfortunately, the NBA has become a league where you have very few haves and a lot of have-nots. And unfortunately, regardless of what some of these have-nots do, like the Sixers in the beginning of the season, we're going to see the same faces that we saw last year, same teams in the playoffs, which is unfortunate. I mean, I guess it's always kind of been that way, where you go on these streaks of the same teams making the postseason. I think if most people would be happy not to see the Spurs make it again, but
you think about go back to the '80s, it was Lakers, Celtics.
Lakers, Celtics, Sixers.
Lakers, Celtics, and then at the end, Pistons back to back,
and then Bulls.
Then the Bulls for 3, then Houston for 2, then the Bulls for 3, then the Lakers ran off 3,
and then the Celtics again,
and then the Lakers ran off 2 more. So the NBA hasn't had a vaunted history of parity.
Yeah,
but I think that teams like Portland, like New Orleans, like Brooklyn. Cleveland beat Brooklyn today, but the Cavaliers could be a team in 2 or 3 years that are ready to make that step. In case you're wondering, Cavs fans, your first overall pick, Anthony Bennett, 0 for 5 from the field today in 15 minutes, 5 rebounds, and 2 measly points from the free throw line. So, but I think the middle of the road teams are getting a little bit closer. So I think the teams in my book that are going to take the biggest steps, at least in the West, because what I was researching, I think are going to be Sacramento, and I think it's going to be Portland at the end of the day. But I do think that the New Orleans Pelicans will be your 8 seed in the West.
Be interested to find out.
Won't be the first time I'm wrong. So let's take a quick break, and when we come back, it's time for the NFL Hour with Jim Saranteas from thefantasygreek.com. You won't want to miss that. You're listening to 87 Live on 87 Sports Fans Radio.
quarterbacks.
Right,
If you watch, the space they're throwing the balls into.
You will do this 4 times with the left, 4 with the right, then 8 times with both, then repeat.
Welcome back to 87 Live on 87 Sports Fans Radio. It's time for the NFL Hour, and you can tell that by the Beastie Boys playing. We are now joined by Jim Saranteas, the Fantasy Greek, from thefantasygreek.com. Follow him on Twitter at thefantasygreek. Mr. Saranteas, thank you for joining us again.
Keith and Steve, as usual, thank you for having me. It's good to talk to you guys, hear your voices, be on the show, be in the now.
Right.
Yes. I like that.
No. So, last week, with our picks, I had to go on the limb and defend my picks of picking Dallas over Detroit and the Jets over Cincinnati. And I was this close to being right about Dallas, and I was dead wrong about the Jets. And, Jim, we bow down to you, as you are the only one that picked the Oakland Raiders to beat the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Woo!
The games that we were all dead wrong on, without getting into too much to take away from the recaps. We were all dead wrong about Philadelphia. We were all dead wrong about Atlanta. I don't know where to start with these teams, but I guess we'll get into it during the recap. So I went 8-5. I'm taking it on the chin week after week lately. Steve-O 10-3. Mr. Saranteas 11-2. Fantastic week.
Goddamn Pittsburgh.
But
Making a comeback, Steve. Making a comeback.
Goddamn Pittsburgh.
Steve is still in the lead, 56-30. Then Jim 54-34, and I am 46-42. Bringing up the rear. Bringing up the rear. So stay tuned, folks. We're about to do our recaps, and then after that, we'll take a break. We'll get back with our picks for the next week, and a real treat. Each one of us has a pick to defend for next week.
Wow. I think I know the one I have to defend. I'll be shocked if it's not the one game that I looked at and went back and forth on.
I think you might be surprised, actually.
Oh, all right.
But we shall see. So without further ado, I will give it to the guest, Mr. Saranteas, to lead us off with the Carolina Panthers at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
This was a great win for the Panthers. I mean, if you look at their standings right now, they're in firm hold of second place in the NFC South. I mean, their future is in their hands. You've got the Falcons who are 2-5 right now. The Buccaneers 0-7. I mean, they're both teams. Well, the Buccaneers certainly look like they're done, and the Falcons, I mean, one more loss this weekend and it's over. So it's a pleasant surprise to see Cam Newton putting up, they're not elite quarterback numbers, but they're the kind of numbers that win you ball games. You've still got a steady rushing game through D'Angelo Williams and Mike Tolbert, which, by the way, with Jonathan Stewart coming back, I've seen reports this week, next week, whatever. The running back situation is about to get really muddy over there, depending on how healthy Stewart is. I'm still a little disappointed at the distribution amongst the wide receivers and tight ends. None of these guys are clear standouts, which, at least for you fantasy football people out there, just wreaks havoc. It's even hard to say Steve Smith. Like this weekend, these guys have a very good matchup. It's hard to say, you should start Steve Smith. You should start Steve Smith as your wide receiver 3. I mean, it's just hard to predict. For the Buccaneers, man, Mike Glennon, he's hitting a really tough part of the schedule. I'm impressed that he can stay turnover free. Mike James, he's going to have to step it up if he's going to have a future in the NFL. God bless Vincent Jackson. He is just matchup proof. Mike Williams done for the season. I didn't realize his injury was as bad, or his hamstring was as bad as it was bothering him, but he's done. Tequan Underwood will be stepping up for him. Avoid him at all costs. Everybody keep an eye on this young kid, Timothy Wright. Love him to death. He looked good. He's athletic. 48 yards, 1 TD. Fantasy football people out there, go at him. He'll be nice to have on your bench.
All right, Mr. Taylor, Cleveland Browns at the Kansas City Chiefs.
All right, Cleveland had to go to Kansas City, and unfortunately, they could not eke out a victory, losing to the Chiefs, 23-17. You take two things out of this game. First off, Kansas City played very well offensively. They did everything you want a team of their caliber, an undefeated team, to do. Alex Smith had a solid game, 225 yards, 2 scores, no turnovers. The rushing attack, they racked up 136 yards on 29 carries. And when you carry the ball that much, you will own the time of possession. And they did. They held the ball 13 minutes longer than the Browns. They ended up having one fumble. They didn't lose it. They were able to recover it. So all in all, no turnovers, solid offense, solid defense once again. But the Cleveland Browns were in this game up until the end. They were, they lost by 6. But going into the fourth quarter, they're only down 3, and they were going on the back of Jason Campbell, who out of nowhere as the backup comes in 22 for 36, 293 yards, 2 scores, and no turnovers. So to me, it was a shocking game because everyone thought when Hoyer went down, Cleveland was done because Whedon wasn't really playing well. All of a sudden, Jason Campbell, who was a ditch from the Bears from last season, who really didn't seem like he knew what he was doing anymore. It didn't seem like he had any of what he had when he was with the Raiders. All of a sudden, Campbell comes in and almost leads Cleveland to a victory over the undefeated Chiefs. So to me, the Chiefs won this game. I think they should have won this game. But I'm very happy to see that the Cleveland Browns are still fighting regardless of what their 3-5 record. If you saw this game, you would think that they were a 5-2 team.
All right, the New York Giants at the Philadelphia Eagles. Well, I picked the Eagles because I thought for sure this would be a game that they just had to win at home. And then enter Matt Barkley. Michael Vick leaves the game after tweaking his hamstring again. This game was god-awful. All right, now, a touchdown wasn't scored until 4 minutes left in the fourth quarter on a fumble return, a 2-yard fumble return. Josh Brown kicks 5 field goals, 40, 44, 33, 46, 27. Whoop the freaking do. Eli Manning, 25 of 39 for 246. No touchdowns, no picks, thank God. Only sacked once. They run the ball. The Giants run the ball 31 times for 88 yards, a 2.8 yard average. For the Eagles, LaShawn McCoy, 15 carries for 48 yards. Barkley having to put up the ball 26 times. Did complete 17, only 1 pick, but jeez, this game was just like trying to pass a kidney stone through your eyeball. Okay, that's how painful this was to watch. The Giants rattle off 11 penalties for 92 yards, and the only offensive trick that Chip Kelly could possibly have up his sleeve is quick kick on first down going forward. Jim, San Francisco, Jacksonville.
There's not much to report in this game. I think everybody much expected the 49ers to just stomp the Jaguars, which they did do. I mean, it was shocking to even see that the Jaguars had a touchdown. We'll have to do some research into how that occurred. For the 49ers, I think the one thing that disturbs me a little bit about them is this is the kind of game that, Colin Kaepernick, they should take these opportunities to actually work on their passing game rather than have, Frank Gore score 2 rushing TDs, Kendall Hunter take enough carries for 84 rushing. I mean, that's what they should do, because these kinds of opportunities for a quarterback that, they want to run the ball to just protect him and to sort of avoid making mistakes. But I just would like to see more of that. I think Colin Kaepernick is a much better quarterback than the way the 49ers are using him. For the Jaguars, it's funny, one of the contributors to the site, when he did the game review, had pointed out that because the Jaguars are starting Chad Henne, who is an upgrade over Blaine Gabbert, it is a fact which tends to suggest that the Jaguars are not trying to tank their season, because otherwise they would just play Blaine Gabbert. And I thought that was, sort of one of these strange little points that you're kind of like, Maurice Jones-Drew, I hope that he gets out of Jacksonville, because, man, getting 110 all-purpose yards, it's tough to do on that team.
Steve, Dallas, Detroit. Oh, man. Oh, man.
That hurts, I know. Detroit Lions eke out a victory against the Dallas Cowboys, 31-30. One of the best endings to a game that I've seen in a long time, thanks to the ballsy, to say the least, play by Matthew Stafford, pulling a modern day Dan Marino by faking the spike of the ball and then diving in for a touchdown. Where Marino, he did throw it, but watching that end was just, it epitomizes the Dallas Cowboys. You have a team whose defense through the first 3 quarters held Detroit to 7 points, and then in the fourth quarter gave up 24 points. It's just ridiculous. You know, to me, this is something you see with Dallas. They have, you know, their offense played well. Romo played well. He didn't have the best completion percentage, but he did throw for 3 touchdowns. Their defense played great in the first 3 quarters. Except, and now I'm going to say this game had one of the best receiving examples of a great receiver in history. Calvin Johnson, for those of you who are living on the moon, 14 receptions, 329 yards, and 1 touchdown.
Absolutely inexcusable.
Now, when you have the best player on a team like Calvin Johnson, to allow him to catch the ball for 329 yards. Now, I know he's amazing. He is a Hall of Famer. He's one of the best receivers ever. But for a defense to allow to not double team him, to not do everything you can to keep him from getting the ball, 14 receptions, 329 yards. If you look at it, in the first quarter, he had 1 reception for 2 yards. So in the last 3 quarters, he had 13 receptions for 327 yards, which is crazy. It's absolutely insane. Dallas, to me, they will always be that team that no matter how good they look, no matter how well they play, they will never win because they just do not have. I don't know if it's the coach. I could definitely say it could be the owner. They should have won this game easily. Easily should have won this game. And the fact that they lost, the fact that they could not play defense against, you know, they couldn't figure out a way to stop Calvin Johnson, which I would put 5 guys on him. Let the rest of Detroit beat you. But they couldn't figure out any way to stop him. I think this was the dagger in the heart of the Cowboy season right here. And unbelievable performance, Calvin Johnson.
I still can't believe the Calvin Johnson, the lack of coverage on Calvin Johnson, and that nobody was ready for Stafford to just lunge. Okay. Anyway,
even Stafford's team wasn't ready for him to lunge, so he didn't tell them it was happening.
It was a nice game, nice play of gamesmanship by the Detroit Lions, but really, Calvin? Dolphins at the Patriots. Patriots take this one 27-17, and if there is a game that any team will have that little bird in their head saying, we could have had this one, this was the game. They were up 17-3 at the half and didn't put another point on the board after halftime. Tom Brady looked very, very human in the first half, finished with 13 of 22 for only 116 yards, did have a touchdown and a pick, but to me, the story for the Patriots here is that they ran the ball 37 times. Well, 33 if you take out Tom Brady's 4 little measly whatever. So, averaging about 4 yards a carry, to me, screams that maybe they're trying. They got the message that hey, they can actually run the ball this year. Tannehill, 22 of 42 for 192. He's not the kind of guy that can throw the ball 40 times a game. He just isn't. Lamar Miller, 18 carries for 89 yards, a 4.9 average. Daniel Thomas chips in another 47 on 9. Mike Wallace, only 3 catches, targeted 10 times. You know, tip your hat to New England's defense, you know, for part of it, but you got to justify that contract sometime, son. You just do. This was a game that the Dolphins, after one half, were in position to really get back. They have not been the same team since they lost to the Saints, and now they're sitting at 3-4, 3 games away, 3.5 games out, and that division is so bunched together. It's just not going to get any easier for them. Jim, Buffalo Bills went to the New Orleans Saints.
I mean, I think this game pretty much ended the way everybody expected, which is that the Saints, you know, I mean, for the most part, they crushed the Bills 35-17. You know, this is a Bills team that's not looking exactly right without, you know, E.J. Manuel in the lineup, and you know, the only real star right now is Steve Johnson, and from you know, to some degree, Fred Jackson. Oh, and their defense. I mean, 4 sacks on Drew Brees. That's, I think, pretty impressive with a couple of fumbles. The Saints, a big concern I have, I know everybody's touted them as the team to beat, or some people are touting them as the team to beat in the NFC. What I'm waiting to see from this team is a complete football game. And I'm not exactly seeing it. I'm seeing them winning, but it's not complete. You worry that when they need the running game, will they be able to produce? Because Drew Brees, 5 pass touchdowns. Darren Sproles, goose egg stats. Rush yards, receiving yards, nada, nothing. And I don't think this is a guy you can... And you got to get him in. Marcus Colson, you got to get him in. The standouts are Kenny Stills. This kid in 3 out of the last 4 weeks is putting up some tremendous numbers. In fantasy football, I'm telling people to start him and play him. He's not going away. He's their new deep threat. I mean, he's outproducing Marcus Colston on lesser touches. Jimmy Graham, I'm concerned about him. I know he only played, 18 snaps, 15 snaps, 37 yards, 2 TDs. This is a guy you need healthy for the playoffs, and you need to pull him out and sit him down until he is right, if he can be right. And then the Saints defense, there's not much to say. They're so much better than last year. The arrow is still pointing up, even though I still think the Saints have some things they need to address.
All right, Steve, the Jets went to Cincinnati. Didn't end well.
No. I don't think anyone really expected it to.
Didn't really start well either. But go ahead.
Wait a second. Keith, did you pick the Jets?
I did. Go ahead.
Wait, say it one more time. I
did.
Did you pick the Jets?
I did.
Oh, you know what? I apologize, but I can't hear that enough.
I thought that they were I thought they were in a different place. I was wrong.
Well, the Cincinnati Bengals. Oh, the Cincinnati Bengals. You know, this team, week after week, is looking better and better, and it all starts with Mr. Andy Dalton. First off, the Bengals won 49-40 or 49-9 over the Jets. They beat them by 40 points. And it was, for those who were not aware of him, it was a coming out party for Andy Dalton because he was unbelievable. 19 for 30, 325 yards, 5 touchdowns. He did have 1 pick, but he threw 5 touchdowns. Their offense was clicking, whereas the Jets' offense, on the other hand, looked like... Now, this is what kills me about the Jets. They cannot put 2 games together that will look good. It's like 1 week they look great. 1 week they look unstoppable. And then they go and play Cincinnati, and they just look like the Jacksonville Jaguars. And you have Geno Smith, 20 for 30, 159 yards, and 2 picks. He pretty much was a non-factor. Their running game definitely was a non-factor. They could not find a hole. Okay, I'll keep it PG. I won't even finish that statement. But the Jets just looked awful. Their defense looked horrendous. Their offense looked bad. To me, you know, for all those people that were like, hey, you know, maybe the Jets are going to give the Patriots, you know, a run for their money, I don't think so. This is what happens when a bad team goes against a good team. The Bengals, on the other hand, you know, if you're in the AFC, and I am talking to you, Denver, who has shown struggles over the last few weeks, and I am talking to Kansas City, who almost lost to the Chiefs, or to the Browns, I mean, watch out for the Bengals. They will come up and they will bite you. No pun intended.
I'll take a quick moment here before I go on to mention that the Boston Red Sox have just clinched the World Series 6-1 over the St. Louis Cardinals.
Can't believe my wife hasn't screamed out yet.
I say that every night.
Oh, hey now. All right, back to the football. Pittsburgh went to Oakland, and Steven and I picked the Steelers, and we talked about how their defense had made adjustments and that they were getting better defensively, and they go out and promptly give up a 93-yard touchdown run to Terrell Pryor on the first play of the damn game. God awful. This team is an enigma, an absolute enigma. They're down 21-3 to the Raiders, and almost just mailed it in for the rest of the game until the fourth quarter when Ben Roethlisberger managed to hit Emmanuel Sanders for a 9-yard touchdown pass, and Le'Veon Bell punched it in from 2 yards out. and then Sanders also ran in the 2-point conversion. Look, Pittsburgh is lost. I picked them to win 6 games. I knew this was going to be one of those years. They cannot run the ball. And I said that in the preseason, and then they've only lost offensive linemen since that. You got a running back like Le'Veon Bell, 13 carries for 24 yards. A 1.8 average from your starting running back is not going to get it done. You have to find a way, somehow, some way. I don't care how. Defensively, the 93-yard run aside, they're still not bad. Terrell Pryor only threw for 88 yards, ran for 197, but you take that 93-yard run out, and it's 104 yards on 37 carries. Not exactly a sieve. The Raiders are what their record are. They're 3-4. They're a scrappy team with a quarterback that has had a tendency to make timely plays. Even though last week he threw 2 picks, they're going to surprise some teams like they did in this game, and they're going to look god awful some other week. So tip your cap, good for them. The Steelers, I don't know where they go from this. I don't know whether it's a long-term thing where you think about changing coaches, changing GMs, changing philosophies. I don't know, but you can't keep playing this way for an entire season. Jim, Redskins, Broncos.
This was a really disappointing game for the Redskins. I mean, this was a game that they should have flourished. It was a game to just pump up your offensive stats, and it didn't happen. I mean, RG3, 132 yards passing, one pass TD, 7 yards rushing, two interceptions and a fumble. What's up with that? I mean, the Redskins, they're not going to do well if this is how they're going to play the rest of the season. It's a shame because they have some very talented players that aren't making plays, even though they're heavily targeted, like Pierre Garçon. Alfred Morris looks like a shell of his, breakout rookie season. They didn't even get Roy Halou really involved in the game. And last week, I mean, he tore it up in goal line situations and passing situations. So it was really sad. The Broncos, I mean, their probably biggest issue is the health of Julius Thomas. It sounds like he's going to be okay with his ankle. Hopefully that is the case, because when you start seeing Jacob Tamme and Joel Dreesen coming out on the field, you're thinking, this will be the team that didn't make it to the Super Bowl last year.
Wait, what are you thinking?
The team that didn't make it to the Super Bowl last year.
I wanted you to do that again. Go ahead. Okay, thank you.
So then, Monty Ball, hey, reappearance, the guy that everybody thought would be the starting running back, suddenly gets an opportunity, 37 yards, rushing TD, and he could have had 2. So, hey, you fantasy ballers out there, don't forget this guy. I would pick him up if you have the room and put him at the very end of the bench, and let's see if he actually gets to be the guy that we all thought he was going to be.
All right, Steven, the Atlanta Falcons against the Arizona Cardinals.
Goddamn Falcons.
Can we call them the Falcons for how much they've fallen from grace?
No, just because that was a bad joke. Oh, this game. All right, for those of you that don't know, Atlanta Falcons have had a very rough year. A lot of injuries. They've been, honestly, in my opinion, a lot of people say they've been underperforming, but with the amount of injuries they have, I think they've been overperforming, doing better than I expected them to do. I mean, if you think about it, they're missing their top 2 wide receivers. They just got their top running back with Steven Jackson, but he still did not look anywhere near 100%. Only had 11 carries for 6 yards, which, for those of you who know Steven Jackson from his time in St. Louis, this definitely was not Steven Jackson that we know. They lost to the Cardinals 27-13. They were on the road. Right now, Atlanta at 2-5. I mean, if you look at the Cardinals this past game, they didn't even look very good themselves. I mean, you have Carson Palmer, 13 for 18, 172 yards, 2 scores, and a pick. The only real standout on their offense was Andre Ellington. Had a monster game, 15 carries, 154 yards, and a score. I mean, their offense was pretty much non-existent. But when you have Matt Ryan, who usually, regardless who he's throwing to, is fairly consistent, throw 4 picks, you're not going to win. He throws 4 picks. They only rushed the ball 14 times for 27 total yards. And then their defense could not stop the run. I mean, right now, a lot of talk was going around about trading Tony Gonzalez. I believe the trade deadline came and went, and he's still on the Falcons. To me, I think Atlanta, they are beyond done, and it's time for them to just figure out what they can do to get better for next season. Because until they get their receivers back, they're not going to be doing anything.
All right. Green Bay at Minnesota. Packers 44, Vikings 31. And I poured over this box score and the highlights, and I keep thinking to myself, how the hell did the Minnesota Vikings score 31 points in this game? Christian Ponder, 14 of 21 with a very underwhelming 145 yards, no touchdowns. Adrian Peterson, 13 carries for 60 yards, a 4.6 average. You can't ask that guy to do anything more. You go to the other side of the ball, and it's just Aaron Rodgers, 24 of 29 for 285 and 2 touchdowns. Where are you going? Eddie Lacy, 29 carries for 94 yards. It's only a 3.2 average, but when you can move the chains in chunks like they were doing, it doesn't give you much hope. I would expect, like everyone has been saying, I agree, we're going to probably see Josh Freeman because Minnesota is lost. The playoffs last year to 1-6 this year, and they are a rudderless ship adrift. We may be looking at the last days of the Leslie Frazier era. Jim, Seattle, St. Louis, our final game of the week.
Well, as we discussed off air before officially joining you guys, I mean, this was the shocker of the week. I think everybody, and I mean everybody, including the people out in Vegas, expected the Seahawks to just spank the Rams. I mean, Kellen Clemens, I did the research and checked it out. He hadn't started a football game, or even, I think, thrown a pass since 2011, when I want to say Sam Bradford had been hurt, and he came in and finished out the season in the final 3 games. I think he had a couple of TDs. I mean, it's just, you're sitting there going, there's no way this guy's going to get in here and do much anything. And he didn't, but he didn't make mistakes either. The Rams defense stepped up and sacked Russell Wilson 7 times. That's obscene. I mean, you can't be the Seahawks and walk out of this game feeling very good about what happened, especially if you're going to be considered a Super Bowl contender. These are the kinds of games where you should be crushing the other team and not actually sort of winning the game and going, whew, boy, we got out of that one okay. Lucky for them, it doesn't seem like there were any major injuries or any bad things that have, except Sidney Rice. I think he's done for the season. I forget what the injury was, but ACL. I think he's done in it. What's that? ACL. So he's done. Percy Harvin's coming back. Hopefully, that reinvigorates the Seahawks. Rams, they're just, they're going to win like this. If they're going to win games, they're going to win like this. It's going to just be ugly.
Alrighty, there you have it, folks. Week 8 in a nutshell. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we will pour over all Week 9 and give you some thoughts. I'm very curious to get Mr. Saranteas' thoughts on the tailback in Arizona. We'll hit that up when we come back. You're listening to 87 Live on 87 Sports Fans Radio.
still so far away. I know it can't be long. I want you, but you're too far away. I know it can't be long. Can't walk away, can't walk away from the things you say, the things you say, yeah, the price you pay, the price you pay for them. She really don't stop. She really don't stop. She rock it till I drop. See, I want you till so far away. I know it can't be long. Can't walk away from the things you say, the things you say, yeah, the price you pay, the price you pay for them. Can't walk away from the things you say, the things you say, yeah, the price you pay, the price you pay for them. No, no, no. Can't walk away from the things you
You're listening to 87 Live on 87 Sports Fans Radio. It's time for Weeknight Picks. I defy you to listen to this song and not chair dance. I know you both are doing it right now.
No, I am currently doing the Jack Black spin from
even better.
High Fidelity.
I'm bopping my head.
CG Imaging, folks. This broadcast brought to you by them. Go to their website, cg-imaging.com. CG Imaging, virtually creating reality. All right, so I read the standings before. I am probably out of it, but I will still scrape and claw my way and try to make everybody's life a living hell. Steven running away with it. Well, not running away with it, off to a lead, and now Jim has been clawing back the last couple weeks, currently trailing 56-30 to 54-34. So let's get into our picks, the picks that we all agree on. We're all picking the Cincinnati Bengals to beat the Miami Dolphins. We're all picking the Kansas City Chiefs to beat the Buffalo Bills at home. We're all picking Dallas to beat Minnesota. We're picking the Saints to waltz into New Jersey and beat the Jets. We're all picking the Carolina Panthers to deal yet another blow to the injury-riddled Atlanta Falcons. We're all picking the Chargers over the Redskins in Washington. We're all picking the Seahawks to handle the Tampa Bay. The Patriots will beat the Steelers. The Colts will beat Houston at home. I'm sorry, Houston is at home at that game. Don't misunderstand me. And the Monday Nighter, all three of us Bear fans are begrudgingly picking the Green Bay Packers. The scary thing is that I think we all agree that Green Bay could probably hang 60 on them. So, the games that we disagree on. And before we get into that, I guess I teased before the break that I wanted your thoughts on Andre Ellington, and the Cardinals are on a bye this week. So he had quite a debut, Jim, last week. Is he the long-term answer, or is Mendenhall still going to be a little bit of a problem there from a fantasy standpoint?
Well, first of all, what you have to appreciate is that this blowout game that Ellington had this past weekend, at least the rushing aspect of the game, was 15 touches for 154 yards or a 10.3 rushing average. 15 touches is not a workhorse running back type of number. I know it's been reported, at least I've seen the reports where Bruce Arians has been concerned about Andre Ellington's durability, and I think he should just put those concerns to the side, because 15 touches is not the sort of workload that those of us who have seen workhorse running backs, I mean, workhorse running back gets you 25 to 30 touches. So I think he's still in a safe zone. Rashard Mendenhall, there's going to need to be a second running back if you're not going to make Andre Ellington your true every down back, getting 20 to 25 touches in the game. But you know what? Boy, I'll take 15 touches for 154 yards any time of the week. And he's not going away. And in fantasy, I know I was lucky enough to get him on one of my teams in one of the 5 leagues that I'm in. I'm playing him. I'm not going to sit this kid until he messes up.
All right. I think I picked him up in our league, and he helped me not get embarrassed last week. It was one of those weeks where my entire roster was on a bye.
I was the same.
Yeah, I just got.
I mean, seriously, how can? And we were talking about this during the break. How can anybody run for 10 yards and finally get tackled?
Yeah.
I mean, you're not being tackled by a big defensive lineman. You're being tackled by a smaller defensive back, or maybe just a fleet-footed linebacker.
Nope.
So
it's a question of how fast the tape catches up to him.
Yeah.
All right, so the games that we disagree on, there are 3: Tennessee at St. Louis, Philadelphia at Oakland, and Baltimore at Cleveland. The first one up is Mr. Taylor. Tennessee at St. Louis. Jim and I are both picking the Titans. Steven has a little bit of faith in the St. Louis Rams.
Well, I mean, I think a lot of people have a little more faith in them after last night's game. Or not last night, I mean Monday night's game. They showed something, a little bit of resilience. They are a talented team. They are better at home than they are on the road. And Tennessee, they're one of those enigmas. They look good in some games, and they look bad in other games. They're not very good on the road. They're 1-2 away from home. And regardless of the fact that Jake Locker is playing well, Chris Johnson is looking like the shadow of his former self that he has over the last few seasons. And, part of it with me is I don't see this as a runaway from either team. So usually if I have a game where it's not going to be a runaway, obvious, even though I have lost a few in the last few weeks, if it's not going to be an obvious runaway, I'm usually going to go with the home team. And especially because little do most people know, but then I have a connection with Kellen Clemens. He is either a distant cousin or he's married to one of my cousins.
What?
But in one way or another, he is related to me somewhere down the line.
How have I never heard this?
Or he's the son of a cousin, or through marriage, or because it's such a distant relation. It's like one of those things that if you looked in a family tree, you would have to look on the leaves falling on the ground to find where he's connected. But even, he's from Oregon. He's from where my family out there is from. And there's a little part of me that will always kind of be on his side because of that. And he's a journeyman quarterback. He did, he did well the other night. He didn't do great. He didn't lose the game, as Jim said. But, I think St. Louis is scrappy. I think they have a lot to prove because as soon as Sam Bradford went down, including myself, everyone thought, hey, this team is done. They have not, they lost Bradford. What else are they going to have? They found a way to stay in that game on Monday, and they almost took out one of the best teams in the league. So to me, they play that way against a team with the best defense in the league in Seattle. They have a better than average chance to beat Tennessee. And that's the way I looked at it. To me, if it, like I said, if it was a runaway, I would have picked the Titans. But since right now Tennessee is expected to win by 3. As far as the line, I still think St. Louis has it in them to pull an upset here.
Alrighty. I think Tennessee's defense is even with the Rams, but again, Kellen Clemens didn't lose the game, but I think Jake Locker is better than Kellen Clemens, and we were talking about this during the break. Jake Locker is becoming a difference maker in the NFL, and I know Jim agreed with me, but I never saw that coming. I didn't like him coming out of college much at all, but he has performed before the injury anyway, and those games that he missed might be part of the more tragic stories on the field anyway in the NFL this year.
I think this is going to be an interesting game to watch and see in terms of how the Rams respond to this loss. The reason why I say that is, right now on paper, the Titans are the favorite team. They should go in there. They should clobber the Rams for much of the same reasons that everybody talked about the Seahawks should have. And that didn't happen. Now, if let's say the Rams come out and they play like they did against the Seahawks, against the Titans, boy, that leads me to really question what has been going on with this team all these weeks, because they've had a couple of great defensive games, and then they've got several where offenses just walked all over the Rams defense that on paper, should be one of the best defenses in the league. So what's going on? So I'm definitely looking forward to Jake Locker, seeing what he can do. Hopefully he's not sacked 7 times. Mm-hmm. And, like you pointed out, Steve, I think you called him a difference maker, a playmaker. He's making plays, which is something we haven't seen from him. We did see a little bit his rookie year when he had a couple opportunities to start for Matt Hasselbeck, but it's been a while. And I'm curious to see how Chris Johnson responds. What I also like about some of the teams that we're discussing, they're like the Titans are coming out of their bye week. And that's a good thing. They can heal up. They can take 2 weeks to plan for one game. Any corrections they need to make to their team, they can go make them. So I'm hopeful that those corrections will do things like help Jake Locker, help Chris Johnson, help Kendall Wright. As I still think Chris Johnson, he's had some pretty good games. He's had some that were not very good. He's had 2 in a row, I think, where he scored. And I'm expecting to see more of the same. And he actually, from a fantasy football perspective, he's got one of the better fantasy football playoff schedules coming his way. So we'll see.
Alrighty. The second game with disagreement is Philadelphia at Oakland. Jim and Steve are picking the Oakland Raiders at home, and I'm picking Philadelphia. Why, might you ask, after the Oakland pretty much sealed my fate against the Steelers? Haven't you learned, you jackass, you might say? The answer, quite frankly, no, I have not learned. Two reasons. One, Philadelphia is on the road. They have, and all of their wins have come on the road so far, so I got that going for me, which is good. And they get Nick Foles back. And again, aside from the big 93-yard run, Oakland held on for dear life. And Philadelphia, well, they have their issues. They are not a perfect team by any stretch of the imagination. But I think that they are capable, and Nick Foles has proven that he can play in this league. And so this is my one game where I'm going with my gut on this and ignoring all the evidence to the contrary. I'm picking the Eagles on the road because they can't win at home, so they have to win somewhere. Okay.
Yeah. Well, you know what? And they broke my heart last week by losing. And man, they just looked awful. I mean, this just looks like a team that they just don't know. They don't have an identity. And I think a lot of it you have to guess, it comes from, I mean, normally you see a team that goes through a quarterback tilt-a-whirl like they are. They don't have an identity. And that's what the Eagles look like. They don't look like they have an identity because they don't have that one leader on offense that's there every week pulling the reins. They keep going through these three guys, and all three of them, at times look good, but except for Barkley looks awful always. But the other two, they look like they could be the guy, but then they get injured and they're out, and it just doesn't seem like they know who they are right now.
Well, valid point. I'm not gonna lie.
One of the things that I like, part of the reason I picked the Raiders last week was I like the Raiders' defense in certain situations where they have a struggling quarterback, where they can make plays. I think they play better at home as well. There's something to be said for that. And I like Terrell Pryor only in the sense that he's still doing enough things to throw defenses off and make big plays. And the one thing that scares me about the Eagles this week is you can see over the last couple of games their defense has actually improved tremendously, and it's their offense that's struggling. So if the offense can come around, and I'm not even sure if the Eagles have had their bye week yet. I don't think so.
No. So
they haven't had the opportunity to make the adjustments. Go ahead, sorry.
No, I'm sorry. I forgot that I had switched my screen to the Raiders. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
So I'm not sure that they've had the opportunity to address any of the problems that they've had on the offensive side of the ball where they could actually take the time to do it. Because right now I think they're flying by the seat of their pants. In fact, I don't think anybody expected Michael Vick to have been in such poor shape where, by the end of the third series he's done in the game. He's re-aggravated his hamstring.
Well, with the Eagles, they beat the Bucs 31-20, and since then they've lost to the Dallas Cowboys 17-3, and then that stinker last week. And they haven't had a set quarterback in either one of those games. So now that they go to Oakland, and then their schedule, they go to Green Bay, then they host Washington. They don't get their bye until week 12.
Yeah.
And then they host Arizona, host Detroit, at Minnesota, host Chicago, and then finish against Dallas. Yeah. So if you're an Eagles fan hoping for anything because the NFC East is still remarkably wide open, this is still the second-place team in the NFC East.
I mean, if you think about it, the Giants are 2 games out of first place.
Yeah, you have hope only because of that. If you're an Eagles fan, but the Raiders are next to last in passing offense, and I think eventually this is the game where having the league's worst passing defense doesn't hurt the Eagles. All right, the last game that we disagree on. Baltimore at Cleveland. Steven and I are picking the Browns. Jim picking the Ravens.
Yeah, I mean, this was the game that I had mentioned at the beginning of the show that I went back and forth on. And ultimately, my decision on who to pick to win was based on that the Ravens are the team coming out of the bye, that they've had 2 weeks to prepare for this game, 2 weeks to sort of try to make things right. I anticipate them to come out and we're going to see a lot of Ray Rice. I think Joe Flacco makes for a decent play in fantasy. Torrey Smith only insofar as I think these are two teams that, with the exception of Campbell, have enough history on each other that you can look at some of the numbers and say, yeah, okay, Torrey Smith will draw the best coverage, but he could still play against that coverage. I think they know each other that well. So, and this is a big game for Jason Campbell. I think it was you, Steve, that mentioned it. When he was here with the Bears, he looked like he had moved on from being a starter in pro football.
Yeah.
I mean, he came out and he couldn't run the Bears' offense. His arm looked weak. And somehow he's gone there to Cleveland, and it's just a different game. Maybe it was the fact that in Chicago there was no way he was going to be the starter.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to Cleveland. He thought, I have every opportunity here. And there's constant competition. Where in Chicago, everybody just kind of knew Jason's our backup quarterback, and if anything happens to Jay, we got Jason.
Mm-hmm.
So, I could go either way, because I even thought about Willis McGahee when I was looking at some of my fantasy starts. And here he is. He's going against his old team.
Yeah.
And now the team's different. It's changed. But, he'll probably be a little bit familiar. Could he have a good game? I suppose he could, but I wouldn't play him.
Right.
I think he's had one really good game since he's been signed.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, just like you said, I kind of went back and forth on this game, and I think the thing that really pushed me towards the Browns, well, one of it was the way they played against Kansas City last week. But then the next thing is, until Baltimore can prove to me that they will run the ball, I don't know if I can pick them. Until they show me that Ray Rice can run the ball 20 times, and they will make sure that he gets the ball that many. Yeah. I don't know if I can start him.
But see, that's what I meant by having to make these bye-week adjustments. I think that is the one adjustment that is sort of in their face. Hey, guys, we have no rushing game. We need a rushing game.
Yeah.
So I think that's why we're going to see a lot of Ray Rice. Bernard Pierce, I'm not sure what his health situation is now. I know they signed Bernard Scott, so maybe we'll get to see a lot of Bernard Scott. Mm-hmm. So, anybody with Ray Rice out there, start him. And if this isn't the biggest week of this season for him, maybe I'll be talking about trading him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, seriously.
So,
all right, folks, there you have it. This has been like the best timed episode ever. I swear to God. Because
how's this possible?
I don't know. We're dead on, spot on. We're here every Wednesday.
We're getting better.
We've gotten some new Facebook followers over the past week. If you're listening, welcome. We're here every Wednesday, 10 p.m. to midnight. The NFL Hour happens at the same magic time. For Steve Taylor and Jim Saranteas, the Fantasy Greek, at the Fantasy Greek on Twitter. I am Keith Grieve. Thank you for joining us.
Are you sure?
I think so. Have a good week. Congratulations to the Boston Red Sox.
Post-game show is brought to you by Christ, I can't find it. The hell with it.